This turned out nice.
This is pretty nice.
Any cons for you?
Yeah, let me throw in one con that is. Oh, I forgot it.
We need to talk about a game that we've been working on for a very long time.
Years. We're still working on Crossroads. We finally went through all the cards and made them all commercial possible. So we used to have Darth Vader,
Can't
Snow
do
White
that.
and the
If
Seven
we're
Dwarfs. We stole
Yeah.
any logo that we
Yeah.
that we could. We didn't really care at the time. It was just a game in the garage, and we weren't worried about it. When we were like, "Oh, we should sell this," I'm like, "Great idea!" And then I realized how many
We get in trouble for that. We get in trouble for that.
All the cards are all set to go. Yep.
Here's a couple of them that
Yeah.
we're working on here as we get going. We'll keep talking about this game here and there to show you kind of sneak peeks behind the scenes, get you a good idea of how this game's going to work. It is very unique. The best way I can explain it is think of something like Gaslands, but it's far more war game miniatures, without dice.
The rule book, which Bodie's got to start working his way
It's
through.
my next project here. It is very thick. Dad has done a lot of writing, and it's my job to do my usual, I don't like this critique.
And I've changed lots of things and never told Bodie anything about it.
Here's
so
the debate.
I just edited.
I'm actually curious. Here's the debate. What is the difference between a round and a turn? And how do you choose what
Which
is
one is the
considered
bigger one?
Yeah, which one is like a round of turns, or is it a turn as a set of rounds?
Yes.
I think a round is a set of turns.
It's a big enough debate that we have edited the entire rule book twice.
Both directions.
Yes. One direction, then the other direction, then back to the other direction. So I'm not going to say who caused all that extra work.
Certainly not me. All right, on to the Buy Bar Bus video that you clicked on, that you are here for, I think, unless you accidentally let this autoplay. If you did, welcome. We're talking about an old game. We don't know how old. We should have looked that up, but we didn't.
We should have. Z-Man is the publisher.
It's been around for a long time. It's difficult to find sometimes, right?
Yeah, they're in and out of production. So they've been producing it for a long time, then they'll not have it in stock, and then...
If you can find it, not an expensive game, and we're going to tell you whether it's worth your time. Try to do a basic explanation of this, and then we'll tell you pros and cons.
First of all, Rodney.
Don't stop. That's too high of a bar. You start with 5 cards in your hand that you don't show to other people, and then there's a 6 card. It's called a parade.
Oh, first, objective, right? You're trying to score as few points as possible. Good golf game.
Yes, and you score points by having to take cards and place them in front of you. We'll show you how that works. I take my 3. It's a green 3. I place it down. I'm now going to count 3 cards back from the front of the parade. So 1, 2, 3. These 3 cards, I'm safe from. I don't have to worry about these going in front of me.
Because of your 3.
Because of my 3, counted 3, I'm safe from these 3 cards. Now, however, I look at these 3 cards, and they are at risk of ending up in front of me. Here's the rules for whether or not it ends up in front of you. If it's less than your number, equal to your number, or the same color as the card you placed, you are required to take that card. You'll notice none of these are the same color. I am completely safe. That was an optimal turn for me. I can now return these. I would then draw a card, and it is now his turn. The game will end when this deck runs out, or somebody collects one of all 6 colors. Let's say I take this lovely purple 0. All of these are at risk of being in front of me.
But it's a 0, so...
Nothing should be less than it.
Right, it should...
Great.
Yes.
Problem.
Good play, Bodie.
Not a good play. This would be a bad choice. Because this is purple, and this is a 0, which is equal to the number I place. So I will now take all of these. I'll stack the purples and the green, and this parade just got shorter. It would then go to his turn. I have 9 points, which is just deplorable.
Yep.
I don't want that. This seems kind of rudimentary. Not that exciting. Nothing interesting is going on
How
here.
hard could it be?
Yeah. Why are we talking about? Is this just a bust that we wanted to talk about?
Right.
No. In the end of the game, there are 2 things that make this game really good. First of all, you're always going to end with 4 cards in your hand. You will then take 2 cards to keep for yourself, and you'll take 2 cards to discard. Now, let's say I discard those 2. I'm going to take these 2, place them down in front of me, and I'm going to wait until he's selected his 2 cards to keep. He selects them, he discards the other one. We now simultaneously reveal the ones we kept, and they will go in front of us. This means you will, no matter how you play the game, you will end up with some points. I think there's like 1 or 2 situations where you wouldn't. But for the most part, you always end up with points. That's one thing that makes this game interesting. The second thing that really makes this game interesting is you're in a little bit of a competition the whole time. That competition is that whoever has the most of any color gets to flip their cards. So he has the most of red.
Yep. So we would go through all the colors. Red, I've got 2. You got
to
1.
flip them.
And we're not counting numbers. We're not counting points. You're just counting the number of cards, right?
Yes.
Yep. So now I flip those around over.
Which is unfortunate for me because this is going to score me 6 points. Then we look at yellows. We have an equal number of yellows. I believe we rule check.
To the rule book. Notice who has it.
We will both flip because we tied.
Oh, this is so good.
That turned his 8 into a 1. I have the most purple, so these get a flip, and I have the most green, so these get a flip. Now, all face-down cards are only worth 1 point rather than their printed value. So the total score I would have is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 versus his 3. He wins with the lowest score. I lose. Sad day. That little piece takes this game from a rudimentary Uno basic game into something that's just that much more interesting.
Yeah, so it's that this little weird tension that goes on that says, you know what, I now have 3 of those cards. I might as well just collect anything.
I've seen people go into the game, look at their hand and go, you know what, I'm just going to go after greens. Like, I'm just going to own it and say, I'm going to collect them from the beginning. I normally play just avoid cards at all costs, but that leaves you with, at some point, you're going to be collecting cards, and you'll be collecting across the board. You want all these different colors. And if you have a big spread, you're not gaining a lot in one color, which means it's really hard to win a color.
Yeah, and so for somebody who's not real, like counting cards and all that sort of stuff, I know that there's a 0 through 10, so there's 11 cards of each color, and I know when I have 4, and he's got 3, and he's got 1, man, now it's just a fight between the 2 of us to get maybe that card right there. So I'm actually trying to get the card because now I've got 23 points here stacked up, and I really need to turn this over. So all of a sudden, strategies kind of bubble up that all of a sudden you're going after cards that you never thought you wanted.
So there's the tension of you versus me, who gets the most of each color, and then there's a wonderful tension of how long does the parade get before I have to take things away? Because you start playing these out. I've seen 10, 11, 12.
Gets way all out there, and then somebody has to play a card, and all of a sudden just...
Those little, like, big, they kind of blow up the table where everyone's like, oh no. And it builds and builds and builds, and then finally someone plays something where they have to take 3 or 4 cards, and it's just like, oh no.
Which is wonderful. When he takes all the cards, I'm like, oh, finally I have a card that can actually play in this parade.
Right, so if he starts taking all the greens, well, suddenly the parade gets shorter, and it's easier on my turn. So you're building this nice tension as the parade gets longer, and I really, it's just fun. Biggest things that I really like about this game, that building tension we talked about, and then the 2 end moments where I pick 2, discard 2. There's suddenly a strategy in there that says this card is great for the moment to play because it saves me, or I hold on to it to beat him at getting the most of one color.
Yeah.
And that, you don't really do that till the last 3 or 4 turns, but man, it makes those last 3 or 4 turns difficult decisions.
Yes, and that last end point, to me, that's like one of the huge pros on this thing, is that last thing where you're kind of starting to get into their mind. So do you have green? Are you trying to do that? Well, I was thinking maybe I would, and so there's this little, like when you've got your 4 cards in front of you, it really is a risk. You have no idea what they're going to do. You're trying, you're hoping, but your plan could be totally decimated by them just playing 1 card.
And I've seen people collect large amounts of cards and still pull off a win just because I could collect 10 cards and he gets a number 10, and that number 10 is equal to the 10 cards I collected. So collecting cards while you're trying to avoid it doesn't mean you're going to lose. And I really like that I don't know who's going to win as the game progresses. It's not obvious. Sometimes it feels obvious, but there's such a swing that can happen in that last 2 cards that can really make the difference. You can have 10 to 20 point swings with who
Yep,
places
yep.
what.
I like this game because there's not obvious bad cards and obvious good cards. Like that 0 is a powerful card. That 10 is a great card. But I love to see a 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, it gets me
what I mean?
safe from
Yep.
most of them.
And so you'll hear every now and then people are like, man, I got a bunch of junk in my hand. And then by the time it gets around to me, I'm like, oh, this junk is pretty.
This turned out
this
nice.
Is pretty nice.
Any cons for you?
Yeah, let me throw in one con that is. Oh, I forgot it.
I'll help you out. I've got a con.
You have a con, well, I'll think of mine.
The con for me is that luck can make or break the game for you. It's not often that the game falls apart just on having bad cards, but it is drawing cards and playing them, and those cards you can get a run of bad cards on this, and it can really mess you up.
There have been a few games where I played here where I know halfway through I'm probably not winning. Feels like half the players have a shot at winning. I kind of like that for a light game, that there's more chance in it. I can't strategize.
You're only spending 5-10 minutes on this game, like maybe a 15-minute game at max, and so it doesn't feel bad to have a bad round. There does lack a little bit of variation after you've played it enough times. Can feel a little repetitive, but it's not a game designed to be played over and over and over and over and over in a row. Like, it's a good break game, close to a Goldilocks game. Not enough meat to be a Goldilocks game, which we've talked about in the past, is that idea of a game that's not too big, not too small, and it's just right. I would put this towards the much lighter end of the spectrum. So it's not got tons of meat, but there is just enough mechanical meat to be interesting. But it does start getting a little repetitive over time.
The pro for me is that this is a card game where I'm not betting, I'm not bidding, I'm not taking tricks. You know what I mean? It just feels totally different. And so that's why it's one of these games that I think fits in the repertoire of things is, hey, let's play a card game a little bit different than
it's a
most of them.
family gathering card game. It's you can get your grandpa to come play. You can get the young kids to come play, and they're gonna keep up and have a good time. It's a conversation game. It's a good game to sit around, talk. Oh, it's my turn. I'll place a card. For me, it's like Uno. It's just better than Uno.
There are a couple moments in every one of these games where there's this run of 3 or 4 where all of a sudden the parade gets big, and then it's kind of like watching a balloon get blown up. Like, how many more times is it gonna and so there's that moment of and it only happens a couple times. It's not a loud game by any stretch, but there will be moments where everybody will look up at the family gathering and look over the table like, what game are they
what
playing?
are you guys doing?
What? And part of that Goldilocks, like just enough emotion, just enough talk, where this game is close to that for me.
So, buy, borrow, or bust. What do you think? You gonna borrow this one? You buying it, or are you just avoiding it?
This one's a buy again, and for me, that the buy, because of the simplicity of the game, the smallness of the game, I can just it really does play nicely and easily.
It's a buy for me as well. You might notice if you watch this channel a lot, we're really kind of attracted to these smaller, well put together games. We've got a couple reviews of big game. We really like big games, but man, the games we want to recommend to people are these hidden gems that are just really fun without taking, like, to me, they're like hobby expanders. They're the type of games that are going to get people into the hobby, and I really like telling people about them.
Yeah, and for me, buy, borrow, or bust, what I love is finding a game that I can buy that might be a little bit different than all my other games in the collection, but over the years, this one just keeps going into the bag whenever we get together.
One of these days, we'll talk about a game that'll be an actual bust. I don't think we've done any really. We've
not done one that where both of us bust.
Yeah, we've been close. More in our lists will we talk about games that are busts for us. The biggest, most controversial games have happened, and if you check out our 11 games we dislike, but still.
By the way, I played Letter Jam, and you might edit this whole thing.
Oh yeah,
out.
yeah.
But I played Letter Jam on the trip that I just took, and 4 players, and it was fun.
So it made it out of the chopping
fun.
block possible.
So your whole idea that I'm playing with the wrong people,
was it right? Was it true?
Yeah, I think.
All right.
And
so it made it to the like list.
Yeah, and it made it to my like list.
Interesting.
I mean, it traveled with me.
I don't think it'll make it to my like list still. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you stick around. Maybe click on a couple more of our videos. Check them out. Hopefully you find a couple of weird games you've never heard of, or maybe a game you thought you should try.
Maybe you know one we should take a look at.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments.
That's true. Let us know if there's a game that we should cover. Thank you so much for watching. You have a wonderful day, evening, night, morning, whatever you're doing.
Okay, one more thing I really like about this game. I missed it on the pros.
He forgot a pro, remembered it,
right.
and then remembered another one.
I like the fact that this plays at 2, at 3, at 4, at 5, and at 6. It's a fun game at every player count. Now, it is different. It's a different
Does
game
change, yep.
at 2. Really different at 2. But this is a fun game with 6 people. And then all the player counts that I've played, I really like.
And that's rare.
That is really rare. Bonus material
Yeah.
at the game garage.
That's why you
There-
stick around for the ending.
That's right.